thinking about, we've been talking a lot about fiction, but I've also been trying to look at media, films, TV, in a similar type of, and actually one in particular that came to mind, but really came from truly this dystopian book, which a French author was the original Planet of the Apes, which was, I think it was entitled, the French name literally meant Monkey Planet. And that was an extreme example of dystopian society in a very different way. And at first, like a couple of other novels you mentioned, it took him many years to get it published. Nobody wanted to publish the book. Then the idea was somebody wanted to think about turning it into a movie, you know, the gentleman who did that. And it took, when all the movies just, no, this ain't going to work, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work. And it became a blockbuster. And each subsequent movie had those different types of elements of dystopian society, but even the look of it fits a lot of our steampunk, even though I've never made that connection before until just going through here. So it's unusual how some of these things do play.
Anyone else?
Well, you know, it's funny what you mentioned about dystopian society and the totalitarian society and the lack thereof of art and culture. And as an artist, I can tell you that in the last 10 years I have seen all the way from governments on down a disdain for art, for creativity, for writing or anything, because they don't want people to think. They think of them for a government and everything else. And so I've literally seen like ads from Kohler bathroom fixtures and whatever that says, "Who needs art when you have Kohler?" It's the actual ad, things like that. So in our society, in our school systems, you can talk to any school teacher. The budgets were cut for art and music and everything else, and slowly that's happened. It's happened at an accelerating rate, even more and more as we speak. I mean, look at what's happening this week as far as the airport security systems and how we're being violated, personally, and that sort of thing. We're even taking our personal rights away when it comes to our physical rights. Someone actually showed me an actual negative of a woman, the X-ray scan, and all I had to do is just change it in Photoshop, and it's a perfect new picture. And because it's it's a reverse negative, and so things like that. So it's really interesting that we are heading toward that way. And if we don't start changing and start making more people aware of how important art is, and I really appreciate, like say for instance, the Art Institute, the Art Institutes recently did a commercial where they said, "What if we had no art in the world?" And they showed like people walking through a city street in New York City, and all the magazine stands were all white. Every Times Square was all white billboards, white everything, no art. And it'd be interesting to see, just to teach people how important art and creativity really is to remove all that just for 1 week and say, now this is how you feel out for 1 week. Imagine a year of this. Imagine 10 years. As an artist, I can tell people, your bedroom is your most important room to decorate, because that's where you spend a third of your life. And where you work, you should decorate the same way your art, and whatever inspires you. Because the same thing, so we become such a cubicle society, live in boxes, we work in boxes, and we end up in a box when we die. And so it's just interesting. I like this idea about dystopia. Never really thought about it, but it's true. And I'm glad people write about it. Yeah, see that.
I see in a lot of these genres, not just dystopian, that some of the authors, especially from long ago, these fantastical things they came up with are reality now. Their publishers said, "We're not publishing this. This is ridiculous." But here we are, that cell phones, day-to-day life, things that would never have been thought of. You almost have to wonder, is somebody's dystopian idea now going to be our future, like you suggest with the lack of art?
Well, it's interesting that you talked about what was it, the character that wanted to be a poet. What story was that?
That was Paris in the 20th century. It was Jules Verne.
Jules Verne? That's me. as an artist, I work in a cubicle, and you know, it's very restrictive, and I have to work at night as art. So what they thought would be outlandish in the future has happened.
Exactly.
It's my life, and I'm very frustrated as an artist, you know, because you show the art now, people will literally say things to me now like, I don't need art on my walls. You know, I don't need art. You know, things like that. I don't need color. It's very interesting the reactions that I'm getting, especially from younger generation. They like the Facebook, the YouTube, you know, the social interactivity, but only at a distance. They can't speak to each other personally. I just took 45 children yesterday to a field trip, high school students. They couldn't interact with each other socially, except they kept talking on Facebook, and they were texting each other. They were right there. And it's just, you know, it's just amazing to see that. So yeah, it is interesting how, you know, fiction can become reality.
So, in summary, you have the steampunk subgenre has roots that stretch much further back than Jeter, Powers, Blaylock in the 80s, writing what Jeter termed gonzo historical fiction in his letter to Locus. We've got the Gothic stories of Shelley, of Melville, the urban Gothic of Dickens, Stoker, Oscar Wilde, and the scientific romance that Wells and Verne were both writing. Tie that all together with the logic of Conan Doyle and Poe and Agatha Christie. Put it in an alternate world where basically steampunk wouldn't exist if you couldn't experiment with the counterfact, with the historical record, if you couldn't change the way things worked, then steampunk wouldn't exist. And then finally, the dystopia, which is so much a part of the punk part of the word. You have cyberpunk was always dystopias, and then I found out the other day about a genre called cyber prep, where the cyber technology that was a negative in cyberpunk was actually a positive, and got slightly frightened. That's beside the point. And these root genres are for the current crop of steampunk. We have no idea what genres later steampunk is going to draw from. You know, like, will you find steampunk in the future that has slipstream fiction as a root? Will you find it in the future that has nuclear Holocaust disaster fiction as a root? The field's wide open. That's what the most interesting thing about steampunk is. It is all-inclusive and ever-changing. So I'll be very interested to see what's next.
Harlequin romance.
They're already doing it.
You know, it's funny.
I'm not surprised.
You know, I was recently watching showing a friend of mine, Dune, David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah.
And he immediately picked up, which I picked up a while back. I said, there's your steampunk right there. That was done in the 80s. He goes, I can't believe this. I said, you know, the whole reason is they couldn't use digital technology. They had to go back to analog technology. It's the revolt of computers. And everything's driven by analog machines. Machines that do thinking. And it was like, that's brilliant. I said, and the set designs are brilliant. It's unfortunate that